Good afternoon, folks. This is Deb, and we're going to talk about Lindsey Graham and some of the stuff he has said over the years. Now, people say you can't speak ill of the dead. You know what? You most certainly can. I spoke ill of Lindsey Graham when he was alive. All right. People out there on social media saying shame on you for speaking ill of the dead. Blah 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 blah. Well, you know what? Freaking Donald Trump. Okay. Made fun of people who were handicapped, all right? Got up in front of a crowd and made fun of autistic people, okay? Got up in front of a crowd and said that he was happy that Robert Mueller was dead. You know what? I'm tired of all of this namby-pamby shit. I'm tired of people like Cory Booker and the Democratic Party eulogizing this guy like he was some bastion of freedom, okay? Lindsey Graham was a piece of shit, just like Donald Trump is a piece of shit. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that I'm talking about here. Okay, so here we go. This is Lindsey Graham. Sometime around 2016, just before he took over control of the Republican Party. While he was in the process of taking over control of the Republican Party.
What is your reaction to hearing what Donald Trump says?
Disgusted. Well, I want to talk to the Trump supporters for a minute. I don't know who you are, and I don't know why you like this guy. I think what you like about him, he appears to be strong when the rest of us are weak. He's a very successful businessman, and he's going to make everything great. He's going to take all the problems of the world and put them in a box and make your life better. That's what he's selling. Here's what you're buying. He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. He doesn't represent my party. He doesn't represent the values that the men and women who wear the uniform are fighting for. I've been in the Air Force for 33 years. I retired this June. He's the ISIL Man of the Year, by the way. He just got back from Iraq a week ago this Monday.
I know. We interviewed you live from there. You were with Senator John McCain, and you were going into Iraq to get a status report. What were they saying there about all of this?
The military leadership and the diplomatic corps. Now, we have young men and women in harm's way all over the world, particularly in the Mideast. They were concerned about this rhetoric because the enemy will use it against us. So what was a concern last week has to be DEFCON 4 this week. Because what Mr. Trump is doing, and I don't think he has a clue about anything, he's just trying to get his numbers up and get the biggest reaction he can. He's putting our soldiers and diplomats at risk. He's empowering the enemy. And this ban, if it's actually enacted, would take people who have been interpreters, who came to our side in Iraq and Afghanistan, who are under siege in their own countries, and basically becomes a death sentence for them.
You're saying he's
So let's fast forward. Let's fast forward to here, okay? This is 2 years ago now, with Lindsey Graham talking about Israel to Kristen Welker, okay?
An entire block in order to wage this war. Why can't it be more precise?
Listen, here's what I would say about fighting an enemy who wants to kill you and your family. Why did we drop 2 bombs, nuclear bombs, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end a war that we couldn't afford to lose? You don't understand, apparently, what Israel is facing. They're facing 3 groups. Iran, who has received $80 billion in aid. When Trump left office, they were exporting 300 barrels of oil a day. Now they're at 1.3 million a day. They've been enriched by Biden. They're taking that money to kill all the Jews. So when we were faced with destruction as a nation after Pearl Harbor, fighting the Germans and the Japanese, we decided to end the war by bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki with nuclear weapons. That was the right decision. Give Israel the bombs they need to end the war they can't afford to lose, and work with them to minimize casualties.
Senator, that military officials would argue that there has been so much technology since those bombs were dropped that for that very reason, that is why Israel and other developed countries can be more precise. But let me ask it this way, because President Biden is not the first president to use arms shipments to try to influence Israeli policy. As you know, former President Ronald Reagan on multiple occasions withheld weapons to impact Israel's military actions. Did President Reagan show that using U.S. military aid as leverage can actually be an effective way to rein in and impact Israel's policy?
When you're telling the world you're going to restrict weapons delivery to the Jewish state who is fighting a three-front war for their survival, it emboldens Iran, it emboldens Hamas. Sinwar is probably juiced up on the idea there's daylight between the United States and Israel. The hostage deal is harder. This is the worst decision in the history of the U.S.-Israel relationship to deny weapons at a time the Jewish state could be destroyed. So here's what I would say. There is some hope we can get over this. Non-negotiable, the destruction of Hamas. Nobody in Israel will allow Hamas to be standing militarily or politically when this is over. How we get there is subject to negotiation. My problem is not with the weapons that Israel is using. My problem is with the tactics that Hamas is using and the idea that America would not send a nickel of aid, echoed by a United States senator when all the Jews are trying to be killed by radical Islamic groups, tells us where we're at as a nation. The Republican Party is with Israel without apology.
Well, historians would say, why is it okay for Reagan to do it and not President Biden? But let me ask you about
why is it okay? Well, can I say this? Why is it okay for America to drop 2 nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end their existential threat war? Why was it okay for us to do that? I thought it was okay. To Israel, do whatever you have to do to survive as a Jewish state.
Senator, again, military officials say the technology has changed. But let me ask you about how all
these
of this
military officials that you're talking about
let me ask you
are
something.
full of crap.
Thanks for watching. Stay on.
So there you have Lindsey Graham talking about, using nuclear weapons, and really, kissing not just Donald Trump's ass, but Benjamin Netanyahu's ass. Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a genocidal maniac, who has tried to essentially wipe out the innocent people of Gaza, okay, the Palestinian people, all right, and it's unbelievable, but I'm not quite done yet. So hang on a second. We're going to go back here again. Sorry about that. That's a useless call that I am not going to take. So here we go. Here we're talking about Lindsey Graham talking about Operation Epic Fury. This is 3 months ago, okay? 3 months ago. Talking about now the war in Iran that was started by Donald Trump.
A free country, whether you like President Trump or not, is up to you. Your view of the war is up to you. But you're not entitled to your facts. You're entitled to the facts. And here are the facts. To my Democratic colleagues, I challenge you today to prove that I'm wrong. During the negotiations to find a peaceful solution to the Iranian nuclear problem, President Trump sent Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to negotiate with the Iranians. They say, Mr. President, all they want is peaceful nuclear power, the Iranians. They've been saying that, and they should be entitled to enrich, like other countries like us, a bunch of nations, enrich uranium for peaceful purposes, and they claim, why not us? Because you're cheap. The IAEA, not me, not Lindsey Graham, you have a history of not living up to what you say about your ambitions. That your enrichment facilities are not designed to produce peaceful power, but to produce a weapon.
So we're not going to listen to any more of this drivel. Let's talk about this. Donald Trump invaded and bombed Iran. Sorry, not invaded, but bombed Iran. We may have invasion on the table now, okay? But he bombed Iran, something that no other president in American history has done because they knew the ramifications of that, which was closing the Strait of Hormuz and causing worldwide economic chaos. That's number one. The United States bombed Iran because they said they were under an immediate threat from Iran. They're not under an immediate threat from Iran, okay? Let me just say this. Iran does not now have a nuclear weapon. They're not any closer to having a nuclear weapon than they were under Joe Biden, okay? And quite frankly, we're going to talk about the Iran war on a large scale. And Donald Trump's memorandum of understanding in a subsequent video, okay? But at no time during this entire episode, whatever is going on here with Donald Trump, all right, this war that was going to be over within a couple of weeks is now stretched into months. You know, the price of groceries have gone up because fertilizer is off the charts. You know, the price of gas, I don't know where you are, but I am paying $3.95 now for gas. I was paying $4.25 for gas, but you know it went down after the memorandum of understanding and the supposed ceasefire that never happened. That was never going to happen. It was a lie. And I'm creeping back up into the $4 range again. But we were never under any threat from Iran. Okay. Yes, they do have enriched uranium, as does the United States. And I'd like to just point out to everybody, as Lindsey Graham told you in a previous video that I just showed you, we are the only nation that has ever bombed anyone with a nuclear weapon. Okay? And if we were under such threat from Iran, they would have bombed us by now. Okay? So that's where I want to go with that, okay? And I'm going to close with this. Okay, let's go here, okay? This is Lindsey Graham.
There with the president's summit in China, one of the biggest issues discussed was Taiwan. Just for our viewers, it's a self-ruling democracy that China has vowed to control. Now, Congress voted to approve billions of dollars in arms sales to defend the island. But in an interview after the summit, President Trump would not commit to support Taiwan. I want to play you a little bit of what he had to say.
You're waiting on approving billions of dollars of weapons for Taiwan. Is that moving forward?
Well, I haven't approved it yet. We're going to see what happens.
What are you looking for?
I may do it. I may not do it.
Yeah, what's your hinge?
I'm not going to say that, but I may do it. I may not do it.
Senator, can Taiwan be secure without U.S. support?
Well, I think it's in our interest to make sure they can be secure. The country, for a long time, has a one China policy. Now, what does that mean? We don't recognize two Chinas. We recognize one China with two systems. It's been the policy of the United States to help provide military aid to Taiwan. We have economic integration with Taiwan. So I want to continue that policy. Strategic ambiguity. What would we do if China invaded Taiwan? Well, we have strategic ambiguity. Trump said, President Trump, it would be up to me and me alone. And he's right about that. What can I do as a member of Congress? We'll be introducing with Senator Sullivan from Alaska hard-hitting pre-invasion sanctions that would put tariffs and sanctions on China if they did invade Taiwan. I want China to know, if you invade Taiwan, try to take Taiwan by force, here's what happens to your economy. The full weight and measure of sanctions and tariffs from the United States will kick in on day one. That's what I want to do to deter an invasion. As to the weapons sales, if the president decides not to approve the package, I'll leave that up to him, but I hope he will be able to tell the country, by saying no to the weapons package, I got an agreement with China that makes Taiwan more secure. We'll see what happens.
So they're sending a doublespeak. I mean, this guy he has gone from the ultimate Trump critic in the Republican Party to the ultimate Trump bootlicker, okay? He is basically saying that anything that happens in the world of war and foreign policy is completely and totally up to Donald Trump, who has made a fucking mess of everything here, okay? So, no, I'm sorry. You know what? I do not have to be respectful of Lindsey Graham in any sense of the word, okay? I don't. As far as I'm concerned, he's another parasite down. And, you know, he is the ultimate. He is the ultimate hypocrite. He is the ultimate piece of shit when it comes to Donald Trump. He went from staunchly defending his party against Donald Trump to basically handing the keys to the kingdom over to Donald Trump. And you got to just wonder exactly what caused him to do that. We probably will never, ever know, okay? But the notion that I have to treat Lindsey Graham with any amount of respect is patently absurd, nor do I have to treat Donald Trump with any amount of respect. And I absolutely will not, okay? Your title as President of the United States doesn't mean I have to bow down to you and you know, my vision or people's vision of me as a patriot depends on me loving this country no matter what this guy does. I don't. I'm disgusted by what's going on in this country. I'm disgusted by what's happened in this country, not just with the whole the whole Iran war, but with the way ICE is, you know, killing people at will on American streets. And we're going to go into that in subsequent videos. The first thing we're going to talk about is the Iran war, okay? But I wanted to get this whole Lindsey Graham thing put to bed. Sorry, folks. Like I said, parasite down. I will talk to you guys later.